Now, news from the Voice of America. Did the Boston bombers have help from people in America? And police arrest the owner of a factory in Bangladesh that collapsed and killed hundreds. I'm Christopher Cruz reporting from Washington. A top American lawmaker says federal agents investigating the Boston Marathon bombings believe people in the United States helped the bombers. House Intelligence Committee Chairman Mike Rogers spoke on Sunday. He did not say any more about the investigation, but he did say that better cooperation is needed between Russia and the United States to determine the movements of the two alleged bombers. The two brothers are suspected of having ties to the southern Russian republics of Chechnya and Dagestan. Investigators believe they planted two bombs near the finish line of the race, killing 3 spectators and wounding more than 260 others. The owner of a factory that collapsed in Bangladesh last week has been arrested on the border with India. He'd been missing since the collapse on Wednesday that killed at least 377 people. A fire began Sunday night at the site of the collapsed factory, forcing a temporary halt to the search for survivors. The fire began as rescue workers were trying to cut through a steel beam to reach a trapped woman. At least 3 rescuers were injured. Fire officials said the trapped woman was likely killed in the fire. On Tuesday, inspectors found cracks in the building and warned the factory's owner and managers to keep people out of it. Police say that warning was ignored. Asian officials are in Bangkok this week talking about ways to help strengthen the region's economies against natural disasters and financial shocks. Ron Corbin reports a senior United Nations official is warning about weak accountability and poor governance in the region.
UN Undersecretary General Noeleen Heyzer says more accountability is needed, given growing threats from natural disasters and the impact of human-caused crises in the Asia-Pacific region. According to UN reports, the Asia-Pacific remains the most disaster-prone region, with about 2.5 million people affected and nearly 800,000 lives lost during the past decade. The region was also shaken by the financial crisis of the late 1990s that left millions in poverty, and more recently affected by debt issues in Europe and the United States. Heyzer says there are a number of policy changes that can be used to reduce disaster risk, but greater accountability needs to be addressed. Ron Corbin for VOA News, Bangkok, Thailand.
American lawmakers are calling on President Obama to take action against Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. This week, an American intelligence report said Syria has used chemical weapons against its own people. The VOA's Michael Bowman reports.
Speaking on the U.S. television program Meet the Press, Republican Senator John McCain demanded prompt action.
Arming the rebels, making sure that we help with the refugees, be prepared with an international force to go in and secure these stocks of chemical and perhaps biological weapons. There are a number of caches of these chemical weapons. They cannot fall into the hands of the jihadists.
McCain has also urged establishing a no-fly zone over Syria. The White House says it wants the United Nations to confirm the U.S. belief that chemical weapons have been used, something President Barack Obama has described as a red line that would trigger a U.S. response. Senator McCain says the administration's posture has failed to stem bloodshed in Syria. Michael Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
3 political campaign offices in northwest Pakistan were bombed on Sunday, at least 9 people killed. The Pakistani Taliban claimed responsibility for the bombings, which happened near Kohat City, Peshawar, and Swabi. At least 50 people have been killed in political violence in the last few weeks as the election nears. Most of the attacks have been on candidates from non-religious parties who are opposed to the Taliban. And Iraqi officials have suspended the broadcasting licenses of the Arabic television network Al Jazeera and 9 other satellite television operations. The government says the networks are responsible for last week's sectarian violence. The suspensions were announced Sunday. They go into effect immediately. The satellite signals of the 10 stations aren't blocked, but Iraq says it will take legal action if any of the networks send reporters into the country. That's the news at this hour from the Voice of America.